Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me Swastika, and in this video I will be discussing with you all the 6 theories of knowledge. I will also be discussing the difference between epistemology and ontology. The facts and the figures and the theories that I will be discussing with you today have been asked previously in a lot of interview questions, in a lot of entrance papers, and also as objective MCQ paper questions in different entrances for your universities. So not only is this video relevant for those people who are studying for UGC NET, be it political science or international relations, it's also relevant for people or students who are studying for their masters or UG entrance examinations, and also relevant for those who are studying and preparing for interviews, be it for different posts. So without any further ado, let's start. But before we begin, there's just one request. In case you like my content, please don't forget to subscribe, and please wait and watch this video till the end, because it's at the end that we will come across some of the most interesting facets that make this video and the knowledge that I'm trying to impart through this video more interesting and more relevant. I worked very hard for this, and I've had to do a lot of research before I could put this video, because it sometimes, even if one word is wrong, especially in the domain of political philosophy, your entire video can be considered wrong. So it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of research to give you guys the right information, and especially I do it for free. So without any further ado, let's begin this video. So the first thing before we start studying different theories of knowledge is that as students, do we understand the meaning of the word epistemology, and do we understand how the word epistemology is different from ontology? So guys, epistemology basically is a theory of knowledge, okay? It studies of what knowledge is and how we should reason about the nature and elements of knowledge. So the day and the second we start studying about what knowledge is and how we should reason about the nature and elements of knowledge, we start understanding the domain of epistemology. This is something that can get asked to you in different interviews as well as your entrance papers. Knowledge is often formulated and explained in terms of how an event looks and how models interact. So epistemology is basically made up of elements of world in which we live, okay? So the world and the system in which we operate, the elements of it constitute the epistemology. In this, it is important to understand there are different domains and different dimensions of epistemology. But epistemology is something that penetrates very, very deep. That means language can be a barrier to understanding epistemology, since the language that we use with each other is patriarchal. Because the domain in which we operate is patriarchal, so looking beyond the system that is, infested with patriarchy, that is how we understand epistemology. So we have to overlook the language, the barriers of language, and then we have to understand how different elements are operating and how we should study knowledge. Okay? In this, it is important to understand that understanding something, understanding a concept or understanding what we are trying to study is more important than knowledge, and knowing something is more important than believing something, okay? It also determines the research questions you will need to answer. So this epistemology forms a very basic tenet of when we start doing our field work, when we start doing and writing research papers, okay? Now let's look at the word ontology and let's see how is it different from epistemology. So ontology is basically concerned with the natural world. It is concerned with the nature of reality. It focuses on the core characteristics, the origin, and what we can observe. So guys, ontology is observational in nature. This means the second I ask the question, what exists? What is real? What is true? That is the second that I start looking at the ontological perspective. Okay? It is primarily concerned with the core characteristics. Okay? And in this we have to basically study reality. So these are some of the key points. If you use this in your interview answers, you will ace your interview. If you use these key points in your objective MCQ or your subjective papers, you will ace the interview. The last difference between ontology and epistemology is that while epistemology helps you determine research questions that you will need to answer later, the ontology defines your entire research framework. Okay, so epistemology can be qualitative, it can be quantitative, but ontology is going to define your entire research framework. So this was how we understand the difference between ontology and epistemology. And of course, now we are going to study the 6 different theories of knowledge. This is especially important because this is something which has distinctions. Like you may agree with the theories, but you may also disagree. There are students, there are people who disagree with all the 6 theories of knowledge and they say that they are not relevant. Okay? However, in this video, we are just going to, in short, discuss the 6 theories, which are going to be, the first is going to be logical positivism, the second is going to be relativism, the third is going to be ontological realism, the fourth is going to be postmodernism, the fifth is going to be social constructivism, and the sixth is going to be scientific realism. So these 6 theories constitute how we study political science in higher grades, how we study political philosophy in higher grades. As soon as we clear your masters, we go for MPhil, we go for PhD. These are going to be the recurring terms in our study, and they are very, very, very important, especially from the perspective of giving, writing and acing your interviews. So without any further ado, let's look at the first theory, which is going to be logical positivism. So logical positivism is the view that traditional metaphysical doctrine can be rejected as meaningless because scientific knowledge is the only factual knowledge. So I wanted to be very, very precise and very, very correct with how I want to define logical positivism. And that is the most accurate definition that I have come across. What this implies is very simple. For example, in political philosophy, we have to study works of Plato. We study his theory of form. We study the cave allegory. When we study the theory of form, we understand that he has derived something from a general idea to a specific idea. And that is how his approach works. Okay, but that is a traditional approach. That is not based on scientific assumptions. That is based on purely observational assumptions, and that theory that Plato has given us, that we have over multiple centuries and years studied again and again in the form of the book The Republic, can be discarded as meaningless because it is not scientific. So according to logical positivism, if we are studying atoms, if we are studying molecules, that is going to be a scientific approach. But Plato's theory of form can simply be regarded and disregarded as meaningless. Okay? The proponents of this theory include Hans Hahn, Bertrand Russell, Rudolf Carnap and Gottlob Frege. Okay? So these are the 3-4 people, and in this particular theory of knowledge. The second theory of knowledge that we are going to study is going to be relativism. A lot of you know about it, a lot of you may have heard about it, but let's look at the exact definition of relativism. Relativism constitutes the perception that truth, right and wrong, standards of reasoning and procedure of justification are the products of changing norms and cultural frameworks, and that their authority or relevance is confined to the context that produced them. So this is the most apt description of what relativism means. And if I have to explain this to you in easier words, I would say that relativism means that there is no right and there is no wrong. Okay, that's the first thing. We are basically a subject. This basically means that we can't say that something is wrong because of some other thing that is happening. So the way that human rights have been constituted in the past may have been relevant and may have been right at that point in time. However, the conception of human rights today has completely changed. So a major proponent of this theory was Thomas Kuhn. Okay, the next theory that we're going to quickly look at is going to be ontological realism. This theory states that there is no objective fact. The ontological realist concludes that there is nothing in the world fully answering to our moral concepts and no facts or properties that render moral judgment objectively true. So this basically means that since there are no objective facts, we cannot define something as objectively bad and another as objectively true. So the domain of objectivity can be false because there is nothing that can be factually good and there can be nothing that is objectively right. Okay, it's a gray area basically. And the proponent of this theory can be J.C. Mackie. The next that we are going to study, and this is my personal favorite, and this has been a cause of a lot of debate and it has stirred a lot of different discussions and deliberations in the realm of political science, is going to be postmodernism. So postmodernism basically invites skepticism or critical thinking towards grand narratives, okay, ideologies and various tenets of enlightenment rationality. So guys, we knew that when Descartes said, I think because I can, it was the dawn of enlightenment. It was the age of reason that was ushered in. Postmodernism basically criticizes enlightenment and the grand narratives of ideology, of enlightenment, rationality, so on and so forth. And it basically criticizes how we understand modernity. It asserts, similar to relativism, that things like knowledge and truth, the product of unique systems and their socio-political era, and thus both are constructed and contextual. So basically, postmodernism would question social norms, it would question modern thoughts, okay, and it would also criticize them. A famous proponent of this theory is Derrida, and we have Jean-Francois Lyotard. So Derrida has famously given us his theory of deconstruction. It's a little complex theory, and if I have time, perhaps later in some video I can explain it to you all. But in his theory of deconstruction, he had also given two very, very cool theories. The first theory that he had given was theory of inversion and theory of subversion. So Derrida had basically deconstructed everything, and he had said that how to resolve conflicts. ठीक है, conflict resolution में क्या होता है? For example, two parties A and B are fighting with each other. A has oppressed B for centuries through millennium. So according to Derrida's theory of inversion, if justice were to be sought, then the entire structure would get inverted and B should start treating A the way A has treated B throughout the centuries. So B should also get oppressed in the same manner that A has been oppressed. Okay, so this is Derrida's theory of inversion, and this is the first method to conflict resolution. The second thing that he had said was that when conflicts arise between two groups A and B, according to the second theory, which is the theory of subversion, we would want B, which is the oppressed party, to simply overhaul the entire system. So instead of oppressing A in the manner that A has oppressed B, B would simply overhaul the entire system and create a new system, cast the state afresh. So this was how Derrida had deconstructed conflict resolution and how he had tried to make us understand these two different theories. And he was one of the most famous postmodernist thinkers because he could question the values which were imparted by enlightenment. Okay. The next we are going to discuss is social constructivism. And this is a very cool and a very important theory. This is also the second last theory in my list. But before I begin this, please, if you are enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe, because most of the content that I create is for free and I try to impart free education to my viewers. So you can do better in all spheres of your life, be it your objective papers, your subjective papers, and even your interviews. So if you are liking my content, please share it with your friends, ask them to subscribe, and comment your thoughts on what you think about in the comment section down below. Do you think the theory of subversion by Derrida is more relevant, or the theory of inversion is more relevant? So you can comment your thoughts below. The next I'm going to discuss is going to be social constructivism. The exact definition is that social constructivism maintains that human development and knowledge is constructed through interaction with other human beings. Social constructivism applies the more general philosophy of constructivism to the social, in that it is essentially a sociological theory of knowledge. So guys, that was the exact definition. Now I will try to explain to you in simple words what it means. It basically means that human development and knowledge is constructed through interaction with other human beings. So it states that the relations that we have with other human beings construct the domain of knowing, understanding, and knowledge and development. And once we look at this theory at a macro level, not at an individual micro level, but at a macro level, we can easily understand how relations between India and Pakistan can be a social construct. It is possible that the relation that we have had till Pakistan till now may not have been that great. But it is possible in the future, if we are to develop those social relations more fully, that there can be a better future for the two parties, where there is peace and harmony and there is less conflict. So that relation that we have with Pakistan can be subject to social constructivism when we look at things from a macro perspective. From a micro perspective, we can perhaps look at the relationship between Taylor Swift and Kanye West. So Kanye West has always criticized Taylor Swift on screen, on stage, and perhaps the relations between these two parties aren't always the best. But if we were to act more carefully upon the words that we use, the manners that we have with each other, perhaps if Kanye were to apologize for years of misbehavior, then the relationship between Taylor Swift and Kanye West could perhaps be better and could, be less conflictual and more peaceful. So that is the, in essence, that is how we understand social constructivism, which is a sociological theory. So now let's move to the last point, which is scientific realism. This is the last theory that we are going to discuss, and it is, in exact words, defined by a favorable attitude towards theories and models, recommending belief in both the observable and unobservable aspects of the world described by sciences. It means that theoretical claims and observed research by themselves constitute knowledge. So basically this theory is saying that unobserved research and non-theoretical claims do not constitute knowledge. Then what constitutes knowledge? Theoretical claims and observed research does. This means that research which comes from experiments which have been conducted and research that has been done and theoretical models which have been considered would be scientific in nature. Okay, so this is how we understand scientific realism, and a proponent of this is Ernan McCullin. Similarly, a proponent of social constructivism is Thomas Luckman or Peter L. Berger. So these are the 6 theories of knowledge. The first was logical positivism, the second was relativism, the third was ontological realism, the fourth was postmodernism, the fifth was social constructivism, and the sixth was scientific realism. So these are the 6 different ways in which we can understand what constitutes knowledge and what we have to, how we have to define, how we have to work, and how we have to understand what reality is and its relationship with metaphysics. It also helps us determine the research questions that we are going to be answering in our research work as political scientists. So if you liked the content, please don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends, with your family, and please like and comment down below and stay tuned for the next